لا بدهائي بالله حزت الفضل لا بدهائي.
Yes, it's already on. So what shall we do today? Did we already start some discussion? It was to be carried on to today, or
No,
it's a new subject?
new subject.
Okay, please.
Not from
This question comes from Ankara.
Yes.
A brother asked that according to Hadith, the revival of the man will be from the last piece of bone on the spine.
Huh?
The revival, of a man will be from the last piece of bone on the spine.
I think he's confused in his question.
What?
Yes, I think he's referring to the verse of the Holy Quran, خُلِقَ الْإِنسَانُ مِنْ مَاءٍ دَافِقٍ يَخْرُجُ مِنْ بَيْنِ الصُّلْبِ وَالتَّرَائِبِ.
And he said that would Huzur agree this?
But she's referring to a hadith.
Yes, he's confused.
He wrote that this is Hadith. And he said, would Huzur agree that this should be investigated by the scientist?
First of all, I would like you or someone else to help me in understanding this question, to understand this question, please.
Hazur, she said that the revival of man,
Revival of men.
yes, according to one hadith which he did not mention any reference to it, will start from the spine of a man.
The last piece of spine.
The last piece of spine.
Min sulbi wa taraib.
This is what the eye
Ben
assumes.
sulbi wa taraib is mentioned, of course, but this is not mentioned. Whatever the questioner refers to
Yeah.
is, to my knowledge, non-existent. No reference in Hadith or the Quran, to my knowledge, refers to the last piece, which is the last bone of the spinal cord. And the question says that according to some Hadith, the revival of man will begin from that. I don't think so. First of all, it's because it is contradictory to the Quran. يَخْرُجُ مِنْ بَيْنِ الصُّلْبِ وَالتَّرَائِبِ is quite a different story.
Yes. كان السؤال من أحد الأخوة في أنقرة، ويبدو أن كان هنالك بعض الخلط في مفاهيمه وأيضا في إشارته إلى أحد الأحاديث النبوية الشريفة، إذ قال السائل: أريد أن أعرف من حضرة أمير المؤمنين مفهوم أن الإنسان سيعطى حياة جديدة وتبدأ هذه الحياة من منطقة معينة في العمود الفقري للإنسان. فأجاب حضرة أمير المؤمنين وقال: حسب معرفتي الخاصة لا أعرف بأي حديث يشير إلى هذه الأمور ولا حتى في القرآن الكريم، ولكن الآية الوحيدة التي تتبادر إلى الذهن هي الآية التي تشير إلى أن الإنسان خلق من ماء دافق يخرج من بين الصلب والترائب.
This bone which is being referred to by the questioner, is called coccyx. Last four bones of the vertebral column are bonded together to make this piece of coccyx, to which the scientists say the tail was attached. A tail was attached before, like you find a monkey's tail. And also sometimes you find monkeys without a tail, but the coccyx is apparent. You can see the small portion of the spinal cord with which the tail used to be attached. So this is amazing that the Holy Quran should say that man will grow from his tail. It doesn't, to my knowledge, it doesn't.
يقول حاتم المنين أن العظام الأربعة هذه الموجودة في آخر العمود الفقري للإنسان ما يشار إليها باللغة الإنجليزية بالكوكسيس. ويقول حاتم المنين العلماء قد أثبتوا أن هذه العظام الأربعة كانت تحتوي في الماضي على ذنب للقرد، وكما يبدو هذا واضحا في بعض القردة يظهر فيهم هذا الذنب. ويقول حاتم المؤمنين أنني أستغرب كيف أن الله سبحانه وتعالى يشير إلى أن الإنسان سيخلق من مؤخرته أو من ذلك الذنب الذي يوجد في ظهره.
That's right, yes. Next question, Imam Sahib, if you have any.
Yes, I have got Huzur one question sent by Mahadabuz from Egypt. She has quoted 3 verses of the Holy Quran. I will read them first.
Did she observe our last program in which her previous question was answered?
I have not checked that.
I don't know where she has disappeared. Mahadabuz.
I think she's still in Egypt.
Huh?
I think she's still in Egypt.
Still in Egypt, but the address is not known. She went very much frustrated with, with some things in life.
Yeah.
And although her Ahmadiyyat is absolutely upright and very solid, but she has been somehow kept away from circulation by her family. So that is why we don't know of any direct address of Mahadabuz.
Yeah.
If she is listening to this program, she may please contact me and let me know how can I write back to her. Because all messages cannot be delivered through MTA, you know.
Yes.
Okay, please.
The 3 verses she has quoted, I will read them first of all. The first one is from Surah Ibrahim, verse number 5.
Yes.
It says, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا مِن رَسُولٍ إِلَّا بِلِسَانِ قَوْمِهِ لِيُبَيِّنَ لَهُمْ فَيُضِلُّ اللَّهُ مَن يَشَاءُ وَيَهْدِي مَن يَشَاءُ وَهُوَ الْعَزِيزُ الْحَكِيمُ. Translation is, and we have not sent any messenger except with the language of his people in order that he might make things clear to them.
Right.
Then Allah lets go astray whom he wills and guides whom he wills, and he is the mighty, the wise.
The question.
Yes, after 3 verses, yes.
Every question should be asked separately.
Yeah.
What is the question raised based on this verse?
She says that we know that the Holy Prophet ﷺ was sent to all the people of all times to come. So how can we explain the following 3 verses? This was the first one. And there are 2 others.
I understand. She is making one question out of the 3 verses combined. Yes, okay. Read the next
The
one.
second verse is from Surah An-Nahl, verse number 104. It says, وَلَقَدْ نَعْلَمُ أَنَّهُمْ يَقُولُونَ إِنَّمَا يُعَلِّمُهُ بَشَرٌ لِسَانُ الَّذِي يُلْحِدُونَ إِلَيْهِ أَعْجَمِيٌّ وَهَذَا لِسَانٌ عَرَبِيٌّ مُبِينٌ.
Correct.
Translation is, and indeed we know that they say that it is only a man who teaches him, but the tongue of him to whom they unjustly incline in making this insinuation is foreign, while this is Arabic language, Arabic tongue, plain and clear. The third verse is from Surah Shu'ara, the 2 verses 199 and 200. This says, وَلَوْ نَزَّلْنَاهُ عَلَى بَعْضِ الْأَعْجَمِينَ فَقَرَاهُ عَلَيْهِمْ مَا كَانُوا بِهِ مُؤْمِنِينَ. And if we had sent it down to one of the non-Arabs, and he had read it to them, even then they would never have believed in it. The question she has raised is that these verses can be understood wrongly, that the Holy Prophet ﷺ was only sent for the Arabs, and that the non-Arabs will not believe in him. So please explain this point and what is meant by the above 3 verses.
First of all, let me give my compliment to her for doing some homework before raising this question. She has collected all the relevant verses together. But if she had read the first verse with careful attention, the answer would have been found there. There is an immediate people whom a prophet addresses. And it is impossible for the address to be delivered to them if they do not know the language. So qawmihi refers to the Arabs among whom he was born, among whom he was raised, and who had to understand him. But it does not mean that his message was limited to the Arabs. Arabs should understand the language in which they were addressed. From then on, it was their responsibility to learn other languages and convey the message all across the world. This is exactly what they did. So it does not confine the message to the people to whom it is primarily addressed. But it is essential that the people who are primarily addressed, they should learn the language. They should know the language. I don't see any objection against this. All three verses produce the same effect. For instance, one verse requires the Arabs to consider if the Holy Prophet had started speaking a foreign language to them, like Persian or anything else, they had every right to reject him. They would say, what are you talking about? We don't understand these things. But he did not. He spoke clear Arabic, which was the tongue of the Arabs. Similarly, if they refer this book to somebody, some person, human, other than God, of course other than God, but some source other than God, they refer this to an Ajami, whose language is not Arabic. So if he had taught him, then the language in which the Holy Quran is revealed should have exposed itself to be not the language of God, not the language of someone who knows Arabic so beautifully well, so profoundly well. So an Ajami teacher would have introduced many such expressions which were found to be non-Arabic in the sense of they being Fusa. So the Arabs could have detected that immediately. All three verses are related to the language in which Hazrat Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam addressed his people. And the same applies to all the people of the world. Whenever a prophet is raised from among them, he primarily addresses them in their own language, and it does not necessarily relate to all the revelations of such a person. The question here is which language he uses to address his people, and how he delivers the message of God to them in a language they can clearly understand. Like Hazrat Masih wrote most of his books in Urdu, which was the lingua franca of India. And although there were many people in India who did not understand Urdu, but Urdu was the lingua franca of India, there is no doubt about it. So translations were made, and they are being still prepared to address the people who do not understand the language directly. But the primary address was to those Muslims, the Muslims of India, who knew the language so well. The Muslims almost everywhere in India knew Urdu. And also the main body of the Punjabi literate people, where he was raised, knew Urdu so well. Punjabi was not at that time even written. It was a verbal language, but it was not written. So this is exactly what the Holy Quran is speaking about in the three verses referred to by our dear sister Maha.
أولا استفسر حضرة أمير المؤمنين عن مكان تواجد الأخت مها دبوس وطلب منها أن تتصل بحضرته مباشرة. ثم أثنى حضرة أمير المؤمنين على الأخت مها دبوس وقال يبدو أنها تراجع مع دراستها للقرآن الكريم، فلذلك هذا السؤال قد مزجت فيه معاني 3 آيات مختلفة من القرآن الكريم. ويجيب حضرة أمير المؤمنين ويقول أنها لو فكرت أكثر لا وصلت إلى أن الجواب موجود في الآية الأولى التي اقتبستها، وهي الآية من سورة إبراهيم الآية رقم 5. ويقول حافظ إبراهيم أن الجواب موجود في قومه، والها هنا الضمير يعود على العرب بالدرجة الأولى، وهذا لا يعني أن رسالة الإسلام كانت محددة وموجهة فقط للإخوة العرب. ثم يقول حافظ المؤمنين لذلك هؤلاء كانت الرسالة بالدرجة الأولى موجهة إليهم، وكما تعرفون عبر تاريخ الإسلام قد تعلم العرب لغة الدول المجاورة، وهكذا نشروا تعاليم ومفاهيم الإسلام بتلك اللغات الأجنبية. ثم يقول حاتم بن منين من المفروض على العرب المتواجدون في الجزيرة العربية أن يكونوا على معرفة ودراية كافية باللغة العربية كي يفهموا ما تمكنوا من مفاهيم القرآن الكريم. لذلك نرى أن هذه الآية توجه هذه النقاط وتضع النقاط على الحروف أيضا في أذهانهم. يقول حاتم بن منين لنتصور للحظة واحدة أن الرسول صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم كان مثلا يتكلم اللغة الفارسية فقط، وأوحى الله سبحانه وتعالى هو القرآن باللغة الفارسية. إذن كيف سيستفيد العرب من القرآن الكريم باللغة الفارسية؟ فهكذا هذا لا يعطينا أي نتائج إيجابية بطبيعة الحال. فبما أن القرآن كان موجه بالدرجة الأولى للعرب لذلك أوحي بهذه اللغة كي يفهمه هؤلاء، ولم يكن مخصص لهم، ولكن يجب أن يترجموا هذه المعاني المفيدة للقرآن الكريم باللغات المعروفة لديهم في ذلك الوقت كي ينشروا أنوار القرآن الكريم. وكما تعرفون يقول حاتم بن منين أن الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم قد كانت هنالك ادعاءات وافتراءات كثيرة ضد شخصه الطاهر صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم، ومنها كأنه كان هنالك شخص يلقنه أو يعلمه نصوص القرآن الكريم وهو يعني ابتدعها ووضعها بنفسه. وكيف يحدث هذا والقرآن الكريم كان يعني ولا زال في قمة من الفصاحة والبلاغة بالنسبة للغة العربية، ولم يكن هنالك شخص فيه الكفاءة والقدرة التامة كي يكتب هذا الكلام القوي مثل القرآن الكريم. فإذا كان العرب ليس بإمكانهم أن يكتبوا مثل هذا الكلام فمعنى ذلك الذي كان يعلمه لم يكن عربيا أي كان أعجميا. وكيف يحصل هذا وشخص أعجمي ليس له دراية بمفاهيم وأعماق اللغة العربية أن يعلم الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم كلام مثل هذا؟ وهذا ما أشارت إليه الآية الثانية التي استفسرت عنها الأخت مها. ثم يقول حاتم بن منين أن مثلا نرى أن حضرة أحمد عليه السلام لما أرسل في شبه القارة الهندية نجد أن معظم كتب حضرته عليه السلام كانت باللغة الأردية. لماذا؟ لأن معظم المسلمين ومعظم الناس الذين بعث إليهم بالدرجة الأولى حضرة أحمد عليه السلام كانوا يتقنون اللغة الأردية إلى درجة ما، والجماعة الإسلامية الأحمدية ترجمت معظم هذه الكتب إلى اللغات العالمية المعروفة الأخرى، ولا زلنا بفضل الله نترجم باقيها كي يستفيد منها كثير من الناس. فهكذا يعمم حاتم بن منين ويقول أنه المفروض من هنا أن يجب أن نفهم كل آية في ظروفها وفي تلك الزوايا المختلفة التي من خلالها نفهم هذه المفاهيم القرآنية. لكن بصفة عامة القرآن الكريم أرسل للإنسانية جمعاء، ولكن العرب حصل لهم الشرف بالدرجة الأولى لأنه وجه إليهم بتلك الدرجة الأولى فقط، ولكن يجب عليهم أن ينشروا أنواره في جميع أنحاء العالم.
The only valid question raised on the basis of these 3 verses should have been Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was not sent to one people alone. He was sent to all the world. And this verse would perhaps indicate to some that each of the people to whom Hazrat sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sent should have been addressed in the same language by Hazrat sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself. This is the impression which might have been created upon some people who read these verses. But I want to remind them all that the Holy Quran, when it defines a prophet's jurisdiction, does not mention any language at all. It mentions the jurisdiction of a prophet without mentioning any language. But when it speaks of the immediate people to whom he belongs originally, qawmihi, then he speaks of the language. So at the same time, keep these verses aside and turn to the jurisdiction of Islam. There the language is not discussed at all. Ya ayyuhan nas wa inni rasulullahi ilaykum jami'a. An-nas and jami'a is mentioned and no language is mentioned. So languages can be translated. They can be later on, later on many scholars are born in the same religion who learn other languages or who belong to people who know other languages. They come from different countries and learn Islam from the Arabs, for instance, while their own language is not Arabic. Then they return back to their people. And now they will begin to give them the message in the language they understand. So this also is mentioned in the Holy Quran, where it says that why not people from different areas where Islam has reached send their representatives to Mecca and Medina particularly at that time, and to the center of Islam, so that they learn Islam from the people to whom Islam was first bestowed. Then they return to their people and start addressing. Now, all the delegations which came from different places during the lifetime of Muhammad Rasulullah, did they speak Arabic when they went back? Always address their people behind in their language. So, and in that they were representative of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah. So whoever represents him will begin to speak the language of his own people and will begin to address them in their own language. But the original Islam which such a delegation should have learned was from Arabic-speaking people to begin with. That is how it began to spread. And later on, Arabic itself was taken up so seriously by the Muslim scholars all over the world that whether they were Chinese or Persian or Indian or whatever name you give them, they all first learned Arabic to understand the Quran and Hadith, etc. And then they translated the message and spoke to the people in their own language. This whole process has no contradiction in it. It has a consistent flow, and there is no contradictions to be resolved, as I have explained things to you. Please.
يقول حضرة أمير المؤمنين من المفروض السؤال الوحيد الذي يجب أن يتبادر إلى الذهن هو أن الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم بما أنه قد أرسل للإنسانية جمعاء، فمن المفروض أن يخاطب هذه الشعوب بلغاتها المختلفة، وهذه الأمور في الحقيقة ليس سهلا تمكينها أو القيام بها من الناحية التطبيقية. ودعونا نرى كيف القرآن الكريم مكن هذه الأمور الهائلة للرسول صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. فنرى يقول حضرة أمير المؤمنين أن القرآن الكريم لا يربط مهمة أي نبي بأي لغة، ولكن لما يتحدث القرآن الكريم على القوم الذي أرسل الله سبحانه وتعالى لهم نبي أو رسول معين، يذكر لغة ذلك القوم أو يربط القوم بلغتهم. فهكذا نرى أن الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم قد أعلن في القرآن الكريم أنه رسول يعني إلى الناس جميعا، ولم يقل للعرب فقط ولكن للإنسانية جمعاء. وهذا ما بينه القرآن الكريم. ويتساءل حاطب بن المؤمنين ويقول أين اللغة هنا؟ هل ذكر الله سبحانه وتعالى أي لغة أو اللغة العربية وغيرها؟ لا، لم يذكر. فهنا يبدو الموضوع واضح جدا. ولكن يقول حاطب المؤمنين القرآن الكريم من ناحية أخرى يعلمنا أن الله سبحانه وتعالى قد أمر أن تبعث الشعوب نخبة من شبابها لتتعلم تعاليم الإسلام في مركز الإسلام في ذلك الوقت، وكان بالمدينة المنورة. ثم لما يرجعوا إلى أهاليهم سيبشروهم بتعاليم الإسلام ويهدوهم إلى الطريق الصحيح. هذا كان في بداية تاريخ الإسلام، وهذه هي النصيحة والمواعظ الموجودة في القرآن الكريم. وكل من تعلم تعاليم القرآن الكريم لما رجع إلى أهله بطبيعة الحال قد بشرهم بالإسلام بلغتهم، أي بلغة قومه وليس باللغة العربية. فهذه كانت المرحلة الأولى من تاريخ الإسلام. ثم في المرحلة الثانية نرى ونجد أن هنالك تأكيد من علماء تلك الفترات المختلفة على ضرورة تعلم اللغة العربية بالدرجة الأولى، ثم تبشير الأقوام يعني الذين أرسلوا هذه النخبة من الشباب كي يتعلموا منهم. فطلب كثير من العلماء تعلم هذه النخبة اللغة العربية إلى مستوى معين. وهذه كما ذكر حاطب بن المؤمنين الخطوة الثانية التي اتخذها هؤلاء العلماء.
Next. Abdurrahman the Great.
So I have a question from chapter 28, verse 6.
28:6. So this is from Surah Al-Qasas, verse number 6. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ونريد أن نمن على الذين استضعفوا في الأرض ونجعلهم أئمة ونجعلهم الوارثين. The translation is, and we desired to show favor unto those who were considered weak in the earth, and to make them leaders, and to make them inheritors of our favors.
Huzur, my question is, what is the wisdom of Allah, what is the wisdom behind the ways of Allah in which He begins His jama'at with those who are weak?
What is the wisdom of Allah in choosing those people who are weak to make
a jama'at of
to make a jama'at?
This is evident, isn't it? I thought it was very evident. If a weak people are considered weak because they have sided with a cause which the people do not like, then whose cause, whoever has that cause to serve him, it is possible for seeing to it that the weakness is transformed into strength. Ordinarily, they were not considered weak. The weakness of strength was never taken notice of. In reality, they were rendered weak because they openly sided with Allah. So how could Allah abandon them? Because their weakness was mainly because of their relationship with Allah. It was for His sake that they accepted that weakness. It is for His sake that they challenge the whole of the society. Treat us as you please. Consider us as the weakest of the weak. Do whatever you like. Murder us, turn us out of our lands, take our homes, whatever you may do, you will not be able to break our ties with Allah. After that, what do you think Allah should do? Leave them alone? And be destroyed by the people who consider themselves stronger? Certainly not. Allah turns the whole society upside down. Those who are considered weak because of their ties with Allah, they are strengthened and they overpower the other society, which gradually dissipates into practically nothingness. So this is the verse which promises the weak people. Understand? Thank you.
كان السؤال مبني على الآية القرآنية من سورة القصص على ما أظن، ويسأل الأخ عبد الرحمن ويقول لماذا هؤلاء، يعني ما هي الحكمة من أن الله سبحانه وتعالى يختار بعض مجموعة من الضعفاء ويبني عليهم أو بداية منهم جماعة المؤمنين؟ يقول حاتم المؤمنين هنا السؤال يجب أن نعرف من الذي يعتبر أن هذه المجموعة هي مجموعة مكونة من الضعفاء أو مجموعة ضعفاء. يقول حاتم المؤمنين بعبارة أخرى من اعتبرهم ضعفاء؟ فهؤلاء هم أعداء الحق الذين يجعلون أو ينسبون الضعف لهؤلاء الذين يعني ربطوا علاقتهم بالله سبحانه وتعالى، ينسبون إليهم الضعف. ولذلك لأن هؤلاء المؤمنون الجدد هم يتحدون مجتمعاتهم، وأيضا لا يخافون لومة لائم، وأيضا يضطهدون لدرجة أنهم يعني يصبحوا عرضة لإخراجهم من بيوتهم وتهدر يعني دماؤهم ويأخذون بالقوة كل ما يملكون. ولكن هؤلاء يعلنوا على الملأ أنهم لن يرتدوا عن عقيدتهم هذه، وهذا كان مبنيا على إيمانهم اليقيني بالله سبحانه وتعالى. فهذا الضعف يتحول بعد ذلك ويعني تنقلب الموازين. لماذا؟ لأن علاقتهم بالله سبحانه وتعالى كانت علاقة قوية ومتينة، فلذلك يتدخل يعني رحمة الله سبحانه وتعالى وترزقهم المكانة العالية وتعطيهم ذلك النصر الذي وعدوا به. أي في خلاصة هذا الكلام الضعف المنسوب هنا ليس الضعف منسوب من الله سبحانه وتعالى، لكن منسوب من أعداء الحق.
سورة النصر إذا جاء نصر الله والفتح ورأيت الناس يدخلون في دين الله أفواجا فسبح بحمد ربك واستغفر إنه كان توابا. Why istighfar in this surah after we see the people joining?
Oh yes, I have spoken volumes on this subject. Why istighfar? The first reason is already given by me with reference to Abdul Rahman's question. First of all, you should remember that this verse does not create a picture where armies of Islam are moving into foreign lands. It creates an opposite picture, where armies of non-Muslims are becoming Muslims and invading the land of Islam. So such a victory has never been witnessed anywhere else. Such a victory is not territorial. This is the first message which is delivered to the Muslims, that when you become victorious, do not think in terms of territories won, because it is your territory which is going to be won by the erstwhile enemies. They will turn to Muslims and they'll invade the central territories of Islam. إِذَا جَاءَ نَصْرُ اللَّهِ وَالْفَتْحُ إِذَا جَاءَ نَصْرُ اللَّهِ وَالْفَتْحُ وَرَأَيْتَ النَّاسَ يَدْخُلُونَ فِي دِينِ اللَّهِ أَفْوَاجًا. Army after army of such people will enter Allah's faith. Then they would learn their Islam from the people who were bestowed the message in the first place. And they will also bring some flaws and faults which they used to have before becoming Muslims. So these are two factors which must be kept in mind. Some characters of the Muslims who were their hosts to teach them Islam would automatically be transferred to them And if we are not mindful of what we transfer to them, we may transfer to them our weaknesses as well. So istighfar is essential. Now this you can understand better with reference to Ahmadiyyat spreading in different countries, in different nations. Whenever new Ahmadis, new converts come, the main worry we suffer from is, the main worry we exercise because of their sake and because of this verse, is how to entertain them in a manner that the weaknesses of the people who convert them are not transferred to them. That has been our main worry, for instance, in Germany. Many people are converting to Ahmadiyyat from different nations in Germany, from Africa, from East Europe, etc., etc. And whenever I visit Germany, I tell those who convert them, for God's sake, be mindful that your bad habits are completely shed. Otherwise, they will think this is Islam. And they will go on imitating you in whatever lax attitudes you practice Islam. I always do that because of this verse. It's a time for istighfar. So the first celebration of Islam is istighfar. That celebration does not require any drums to beat upon. No bugles. Just istighfar. The sound of istighfar, the exercise of istighfar, and constant attention paid to one's own weaknesses so that they are removed. Now that is one aspect of istighfar as mentioned in this verse. Secondly, the people who come, they also bring their bad habits. Now there is istighfar needed for them, and istighfar needed for those who receive them. They may ultimately be influenced by those habits and start enjoying life in the way they do. So istighfar is required on both sides and repeatedly so. Now, istighfar prepares you for hamd. Because this victory will not be worthy of any hamd if istighfar has not cleansed or purified the victory on both sides. If those who convert have not been purified, if those who are converted are not purified, then to this victory there is no hamd. And no hamd for him who effects that victory in reality, and which is Allah. You have no right to indulge in hamd of Allah if the victory you attain is so filthy that it is only in number and bodies and does not in any way introduce the characters of God, attributes of God to the people who convert and the people who are converted. So if this is the victory with istighfar, then you can sing the praises of Allah. What a victory you have granted us. And again, it should be remembered that praises are sung to him who is the main cause of that victory, who should be held who should be paid tribute for that victory. Now this hamd needs another sort of istighfar as well. Because when you gain such victories and people come and join Islam, you begin to praise yourself. You think you have achieved great things, which is wrong. It's Allah who permits you to do so, Allah who strengthens you to do so, Allah who sees to it that your efforts are not lost. And they do turn into victory. So many a time man is so stupid and so forgetful, so oblivious of his own inner self, that he thinks, I have done great things, I have achieved such great victory in that country, in that country. That moment his victory is lost. So he should do istighfar for praising himself. And when he has got rid of that false praise, the only being who is worthy of praise is Allah. So do istighfar from that respect as well. And when you have done that, then of course you can sing the praises of Allah. Then he would love those songs of praise for him. And when you do that, then Allah will bestow praises on you. Because Allah always does it. Whoever praises him, so instead of praising your own self, praise Allah and wait for his praises to be showered on you, which will be much greater, much loftier in their character and, in their heights. So this verse is a fantastic verse. It tells you everything about preaching, how it should be carried out, and as to the effect of that preaching, how that effect should be visualized by you, seen by you, examined by you, and in accordance with that analysis of that effect, you change your own self. So you cannot quote a similar verse in the entire divine literature of the world. In so few words, so much is said, that one looks with wonder at this verse, and then the real hum begins. Right? Follow the message? Thank you. Now, permit me to do something, and I'll return within a few minutes. Will it take you 7 minutes, 10 or less?
I think about 10.
About 10. Please be seated. Continue.
يستأذن حضرة أمير المؤمنين وسيرجع إن شاء الله للاستوديو بعد بضع دقائق وسأقدم. عليكم السلام.
Are you finished?
Yes, sir.
Do you still have some time? Yes. 2 minutes. Now, who is to frame his next question? Aisha.
There's a question from somebody. Whenever anybody is sick, whether a good or a bad person, people always pray for him, for his long life. The question is, why even the righteous people are afraid of death?
When you pray, you are not almighty and all knowledgeable. And when you pray, you do not know where the extended life of that person, so it appears, would be good or bad. So you pray with good intentions. When you pray for a good person, you also pray that he may die as a good person if death has come. And when you pray for a bad person, you pray that Allah give him good or her good health, and in the remaining life, the patient should improve his spiritual quality as well, and make best use of the new allotted time. So there's no harm in praying for a bad a bad person as well. Is that the question which you wanted? Thank you.
كان السؤال هو لماذا لما يمرض أي شخص ندعو له بطول العمر؟ ويقول حاتم بن منين هو في الحقيقة نحن لما يدعو أي شخص لشخص مريض بطول عمره لا نحدد على تلك الناحية المادية فقط، ولكن نحدد أن هو الله سبحانه وتعالى هو الذي يعرف مدى يعني عمر ذلك الشخص والإنسان. فقد هذه المبادرة الطيبة الصالحة من الإنسان هو أن يحافظ الله سبحانه وتعالى على هذا الشخص كان صالحا أم طالحا. والنقطة الأساسية هو إذا مدد الله سبحانه وتعالى عمره لفترة معينة أي بقية حياته يجب أن يقضيها في الأعمال الصالحة والأعمال الخيرية، وأيضا يطور من أموره الروحانية ويترقى في سلم المجال الروحاني. فهذا هو المقصود بالدعاء للمريض إذ كان صالحا أم طالحا.
Right. We're left with only 19, 18, 17 seconds. So we get to say assalamu alaikum to everybody and take leave.
شكرا على حسن المتابعة والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته.